All right, welcome back. Today we have Coach Gail. I'm going to screw it up. I told you right now.
Gelsomino.
Gelsomino. I'm a dumb country boy, Coach. You see what happens here. He's now the head football coach at York Community High School in Elmhurst. Coach, thanks for being here. Sorry about your last name. That's why I go by Coach Steve. Don't even try my
Right.
Polish last name.
It's Coach G for me for most people. So
Oh, yeah, it's Coach Steve. I was a middle school basketball coach years ago. The head coach, he could say my name talking. Like, oh, that's Coach Kaczewski. That's Coach Kaczewski. He could say it. But when he got fired up, he couldn't say it no more because we all talk really fast.
yeah,
So he's like, Coach Steve, get over here. And I was like 20 years old. And I'm like, that's Coach Steve from here on out.
that's perfect.
They'll call me Coach K. And I'm like, well, no. That's Duke territory, even though you're the Dukes, but that's
Hmm.
the Duke territory. We're not doing that. No. Um, so you're going to your first year at York, which is awesome.
Hmm.
I just coached baseball there the last 2 years up until this year. Um, and my wife went to York, so it's like this York
There you
connection,
go.
I guess.
Nice.
How do we feel about you were defense coordinator there for a couple of years? How you
Hmm.
feeling taking over the program after you guys and Coach Fitz turned it around in a short amount of time?
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. The opportunity is incredible. So I was a head coach previously and had to step down for some family stuff. It's out there for people that want to see it, but I was able to get in contact with Coach Fitz. He had a stipend open. This was in 2019. I live in Elmhurst, so I was like, hey, I still want to be involved in football. I can work some things out while, deal with some family issues here. And it was great. So we got on there. He was coming off a 4-5 season. We went 4-5 again in 2019, right? That's not that long ago. But you can kind of see it back then. It was a bought-in group. The community support was awesome. They wanted a winner, right?
Yep.
COVID kind of hit, and I
Huh.
think that helped us football wise a lot. Other than that class that didn't get to go to the playoffs, you only had a 6-game season.
Mhm.
Probably would have ended up winning 6 or 7 games that year. Um, didn't get to go to the playoffs, obviously. So that was kind of that was hard. But those are great kids. Still talk to some of them. A couple will be graduating soon, probably coming
Yeah.
back, really helping out. You can see it. You can see the passion. You can see the want to. And then from there on, we've been pretty good. We've won a lot of football games, had some great playoff runs, um, and to see it kind of happen the way it did, where yeah, we put in hard work as coaches, but watching the kids really say like, hey, you have to do all this work, right? You got all these 6 a.m. workouts and camp, and we're putting you through all this stuff. But I can't guarantee you're going to go, 8-1,
Mhm.
9-0 every year. Like I can't. And just seeing them buy into the process of it. And then once you start winning, now everyone starts believing in the process and it rolls by itself. Right now, the kids are doing an incredible job. We start summer camp in a couple weeks here, and it's definitely exciting. And really, Coach Fitzgerald is amazing, and what he's done for this program, incredible. Right, in a
Yep.
short amount of time, getting to the where we are at, um, was not easy. There was a lot of
Mhm.
hard conversations, a lot of hard decisions he had to make, and he did it. And he went in, worked as hard as he possibly could to get to the point they're at now. He got a great opportunity for himself and his family, and it's not something that I expected was going to happen this fast to be a head coach again. And it was like, it's an opportunity that I just don't think I could have passed up being an Elmhurst resident and having this opportunity is kind of amazing. Not many people get this, dumped in their lap, and I got it. You're going to see a lot of the same from the Dukes as far as the program is. I'll have my own
Yep.
personal spin on some things, of course, but a lot of the staff still in place, and the kids in the community are hungry. So,
That's the thing. I remember my now wife, she went to York and she was like, yeah, they were really good in all sports at the time. And then they kind of had this little spill to come down. And then all of a sudden it just came right back up the way it needed to be.
mhm.
And that's what you expect from like York. Like just coaching baseball there, great people, like athletic directors are great, people are great. And that's why it was tough to leave, but I was already working at Addison. So I was coaching football and basketball there. So when a softball gig opened up, they were like, you just got to be at all the schools. And it was a tough thought process. But that community loves sports too. Like, so it's just like, living there, what a great spot to be in. And like you said, if you already bought into what the previous head coach did, there's not going to be a lot of tweaks, right? You're gonna put your, like you said, your spin, but if there's not a lot of tweaks, it's easy flowing into the
Mhm.
next.
Yeah, and I would say it's a testament to our kids. So the day Coach Fitz, told the kids, it was the first day after winter break. The next day was Tuesday, right? Kids, no one told them to do anything.
Hmm.
They reached out to a coach, said, "We need this room after school for a players only meeting." There was hundreds of kids at that meeting, probably like 150. And our first day of lifting, there was 157.
Wow.
That's not anything anyone has done other than Coach Fitz and the community.
Right.
Um, so it's been incredible. Like I said, they work hard. Our community support's unbelievable. Um, they've had a lot of success. Obviously, the cross country success in the past is well noted, and
Hmm.
we've added some other state titles recently. Of boys soccer, right?
Yep.
Cross had some runs. Football's had some runs. Girls cross country's had a couple. Has been an incredible run.
Yeah.
Um, so having that culture, and I think for other people listening to the podcast, so I've listened to some of the stuff too about culture. Having that culture makes it easy. It's a lot
Mhm.
a lot harder because I've been at a place or other places where you don't have that school-wide culture and
Right.
buy-in, and man, it's not easy.
Right.
Not. So I understand it. I've been on the other side, grinding. Um, but yeah, that's it. I'm blessed to have that at York.
And the amount of kids you guys get on your football team has been incredible because I joked with Fitz if I'm coming into baseball and he was leaving. Oh, hey, how's football going at AT? And I'm like, well, we're trying to get numbers. We're trying to. COVID hurt some schools or helped it hurt AT, and so they're
Yep.
just still trying to recover. And he's like, how many kids you gonna have? I'm like, man, I'd be happy with 80 or 100. Like, and I'm like, what about you? He goes, oh, I had 200, and I'm like, your problems are not my problem.
Yeah, it's weird, and I don't want to call them problems because I've been there where the first day of practice and our program in August we had 19 kids in our program show up, and I was like,
Yeah,
I've been there. Last year I think we had like 240.
yeah,
It's it's not a problem, but you also have to manage that, right? Because it's not like we have unlimited stipends and unlimited coaches, so
yeah.
we have to be really, really organized with practice and who's going on, what's going on everywhere. We've done an incredible job at that in the past, and we have a nice structure for it now, moving forward. But even that, we're trying to make some tweaks here and there. When we go into a special teams period, I was telling someone this the other day. I was like, hey, when we go into a special teams period, if we have we'd say we're doing kick return, right? We have a two deep on kickoff and a two deep on kick return, and I got the quarterbacks with the extra receivers thrown in the end zone. I got 30 kids standing around doing nothing.
Hmm.
Like that's a different issue. That
Yeah,
is a great problem to have, but
yeah.
there's still high school kids standing around, right? So that we have to balance that. Hey, what can they do? Can they get a drill in? Can they get something in? But we
Right.
need a coach to manage that too, where we have coaches on kickoff, coaches on kick return, coach in the end zone. Once again, an awesome problem to have,
Hmm.
but still things that we need to figure out.
Right. I
If
think
anyone
he
has
told,
answers for that, reach out to me and let me know because that'd be great.
well, that because he was kind of complaining about the equipment. He's like, do you think I have like 250 helmets laying around? And again, he was, not a problem, but he's like, this is a situation. And I said, again, if I made a joke, I was like, and your kids want to move a little north, we'll help you with your problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the equipment. He got it to a place where I don't need to worry about it as much, but yeah. I mean, I think that year after COVID too, I know helmets were a huge problem getting
Hmm.
in. There was
Oh,
all this stuff happening. Our numbers were going up. It's like we don't, we got 30 freshmen don't have a helmet. Like,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's weird logistical stuff that as a D quarter, I'm like, yeah, that sounds tough, right? Now as a head guy, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I got to deal with that. So,
Oh, I do that too. If the head coach has that, I was like, you know what? That sounds like a head coach problem or an athletic
uh,
director problem.
yeah, that's not a me problem.
That's not a me problem at all. Um, so, oh, I was gonna. So you come coach at York as a defense coordinator. You already know about the conference living in Elmhurst. How tough is it to coach on that side of the conference? Because obviously I'm on the other side. We have a rolling crossover. That's a tough schedule. That's an extremely tough thing to manage. And you just talk about your defensive breakdown. You see all types of different
Yeah,
offenses on that side. Wing tees, full spread, team that wants to multiple and everything.
um, it's not easy. I would say that what's been helpful is one, I had been a D coordinator before at St. Pat's
Okay. Yeah.
and playing in the East Suburban where we went Joliet Catholic to
Yeah.
Merritt and all right. So I had that understanding and don't go look at that record because that wasn't great. Um, but at the same time, when I look at my coaching career, I had a very young class. The next year they were pretty good, like all that stuff. I think I started like 9 juniors and a sophomore, like
Mhm.
really young, going to like Joliet Catholic, like all those right, really good powerhouses. Um, but I learned, I learned so much about coaching defense,
Yeah.
so much so that when I took a head coaching job, I went to offense, right, the easier side.
Right.
But then when I came back to York and I was coaching defense and the D coordinator spot came open, the ability to and it's a tough skill to learn, but once you learn it, it's invaluable to kind of design your base defense to be flexible and know what pieces you can put in certain places is extremely helpful. And that's something that I learned of like, hey, right, I got X's and O's, I got this draw, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And it's like, well, that doesn't always work, right? We need to be able to move players and pieces in certain spots. I think that's helped the most. But the schedule's tough. Um, the coaching is right tough to go again. Everyone's giving you their best every week.
Yep.
I think what was helpful is that earlier on, right, for the COVID year and then the first year after COVID is um you don't overlook teams, but we can say that as coaches we don't.
Right.
Players overlook teams, right?
Right.
And I'll call it is teams overlooked us, and these kids were ready to go. I
Right.
mean, they were ready and hungry and wanted it, and they studied and they did everything. So if you didn't give your best against us, we were going to get you
Hmm.
because they were ready for it, right? Um, so that helped, and it also helped that like, okay, these schemes are working, keep them along, keep them going, right? I had a new defense, right? Although it's a 3-3 base, there's some differences to it. The match three is kind of new. People have kind of caught on to it now. So,
Hmm.
got to move on to the next thing and all that good stuff. Um, so there was some newness to it, which helped, right? But having that nice foundation where you go in the next year, like, all right, this team's doing this to against us. Let's tweak it. Let's change it. That's helped. It also helped that right when you have an offense that's bought into, right, sometimes they control the clock. We really control the tempo of the game. It helps the defense.
Right.
So that helped us out a lot too.
Right. And it probably doesn't hurt to have just a defense and just an offense either.
It
'Cause-
doesn't. And then that side of the conference, I mean, I don't know how you can not have it.
right.
It's too week in, week out demanding to not have that. Or I mean, there are teams that might start, 3, 4 guys both ways, but I mean, you have to have that just because if you don't, I mean, there's some really good teams on our side. Like, Hinsdale Central didn't make the playoffs the last 2 years. Like, they were
Hmm.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Like good football teams. It's like, man, you go back and look, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Um, so you just have to have that.
Right. But that's a good point because we just did our kids just played in that 7-on-7 at Westmont
Mhm.
and we were there watching it. There we were playing Hinsdale Central and I remember like, well, they've gone like 2-7 the last 2 years. Like what's going on? Their quarterback can throw dimes. And I
Yeah.
know it's just 7-on-7, but still watching his throwing motion, I'm like, how is this possible for
Try tackling him. Oh man, he's a special kid. He's a good football player.
yeah,
He's a tough kid to bring to the ground, and he can throw. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean that's it. Week
yeah,
in, week out. That's what we see. At the same time, if you make it through that healthy, and even if you're 6-3, right, even 5-4, you get in, you're ready. Even for 8A, like you are ready for 8A. Now,
right,
second round in 8A is brutal. Everyone's good,
yeah,
but you're ready and you're prepared for it.
right,
It does make you ready for that.
right. Uh, because I'm just amazed looking at that because like I coached at Lombard East and we thought Upstate Eight's whatever. You get into the playoffs, it's like, oh, you get Marist first. That's awesome.
Mhm.
At 7A or 8A, like, oh, you got Loyola. That's cool. Or like when I was at Lombard East, we got East St. Louis the second round, and we're like, well,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 6'5", and their safety and I locked eyes to each other, and I'm like, oh, so he's a 6'5" safety. This is
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're ready. Most of the teams in the play, right? Downers North made a great run. LT,
Yeah.
a good run last couple of years. Glenbard West, and this right. So if you make it through that healthy, I think the conference schedule now is really preparing you for 8A, 7A football, which is helpful. It's
Yeah.
helpful, but it's a grind. I mean, it's also fun. It, you know, I wish football season lasted all year long, like most
Mhm.
of us probably. So it is fun. Winning helps. But the day to day being with kids that really embrace it, no matter what happens, right? They listen to you, they buy in, they buy into your scheme. That also helps too, right? So it doesn't feel like a grind when you're going through it.
Mhm.
And you look back sometimes, you're like, wow, we did that. But it doesn't it the last couple of years it hasn't felt like a grind.
Right.
And
That
even my
happened.
first year, we were 4-5,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel like a grind then either. I didn't think.
Yeah. That just happened to us because we just went 6-3,
Mhm.
made the playoffs for the first time for the school since 2014,
Yep.
won the first round playoff game, first road playoff win for the school since 1997. And we were like, we didn't know that. Our offense coordinator was on that team, and he goes, I think this is the first time we've won on the road since I was in high school. And I was like, oh. And we lost to Glenbard East by like 10 points, turned the ball over 8 times. And so you're just like, we're right there. And like you said, when it's finally working, it didn't feel like such a grind.
Hmm.
Like it went really fast. But we had a rough go my first COVID year, that fall year, the next year. Those were grinds. Like
Hmm.
that COVID spring was a grind just because of everything. We went
And it
through
was
five
crazy.
quarterbacks that fall, like hurt, hurt, hurt,
Hmm.
hurt. Go 0-9, and we're like, oh my God. Next year we go 2-7, and we're like, oh, we were competitive, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it just clicked. And at some points we're winning, and we're like, did we just, what do we do now? Like, you're kind of like, what do we do now? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, like you've seen both sides of it. So we're all, I remember as coaches, we were like, this feels different than it did like last year.
Yeah.
Like, like we're expected to win now, and it's
Hmm.
fun. And then now our next challenge is, can the kids continue to buy in and continue to say, you can't settle for 6-3. You can't settle for just making the playoffs and not doing it again next year. And making the playoffs is a big deal. That's why we do t-shirts and hoodies. Like, why do you
Yep.
think people praise it? Like
Hmm.
the
It's the
Glenbard
only
West
IHSA sport that you have to qualify for the playoffs for.
that too. And like I try to tell them, like, let's just look. I said Glenbard West makes the freaking playoffs every year for God knows how long. They make a big deal about it, even though it happens every year.
Yep.
I said, look at York now. You guys are making the playoffs. Why is it a big deal? Because it's very hard to do no matter what conference you're in.
Yep.
So like that's our next challenge is
Hmm.
how do we keep that interest? How do we keep that buy-in? And with such much lower kids, like if we come in with 80 total, we're like, okay, like it's tough.
Yeah, and I think like I said, being on the other side of it, I think the and I know I mean I'm familiar with Addison Trail and all the schools in the area and all that stuff. I think the hardest part is kind of what I talked about before is what's the school athletic culture, right?
Mhm.
If the school athletic culture is not great, you can only do so much. And I can go into a whole spiel on the word culture, and I
Oh
heard
yeah.
from last box. Like about what that means and how I define it. And like I have it very regimented out and what it means for me and how I evaluate it in my program and all that stuff. But you can only do so you can I think number one is like, do we have the best athletic culture in the school right now? Does the
Mhm.
football program, does my program have the best athletic culture in the school? I can tell you, do I think the football program at York does? I mean, I think we do. We might not. I mean, there are some. Go watch girls cross country in the fall.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's
Oh yeah.
incredible, right? What some of these programs do. And right, we're trying. We're all kind of pushing each other to get up there and stay up there. I think one of the cool things that we have, right? We had a ton of kids at workouts. We share the weight room space. So every Friday, girls water polo is in there lifting,
Mhm.
right? With right next to it. We have a rack. Football players right next to the rack of polo players, squatting or cleaning or doing whatever they are. Right. That is a tough thing to build.
Mhm.
But when you see, and I know there's some other coaches you've talked to where that culture in a smaller school environment is really important.
Yeah.
And when it starts clicking, you start really seeing things go in the right direction.
Right.
However, is that an easy thing to do? No. And does it happen quick? Absolutely not. I mean, this is a years process, like 4, 5, 6 years to do it. So
Mhm.
it's a very difficult thing. And that was kind of the thing at York too, is like, okay, we at least have the culture part in place throughout the building. But it's 2018 was Fitz's first year there,
Mhm.
right? The first year we made the playoffs was 21. Like it was years, right? It was
Right.
a process to get there. But once you're there, and if it's all in place, that's when you really start seeing things roll.
Well, then
Um,
kind of my other observantness of coaching at York and from the outside looking in, from that athletic culture standard, whatever you want to call it,
mhm,
the weight room and speed stuff seemed to be like an important vocal point of the school. And so I know Mr. Wagner over there, like they got a trainer in there to help you guys out. Like coaches push the speed and strength stuff. And once that clicked from the outside and being a part of it, it seemed like that was another big jump. Like you could have X's and
huge.
O's, you could have this, but if you have the off-season work to take pressure off your guys' plate, that just seemed to help uh,
Yeah.
elevate it to that next step.
And I mean, you can't tell by looking at me. I'm a big guy on speed, and I'm an old lineman, right? So I wasn't the fastest person in the world.
Preach.
But I think when you watch, and I've had a lot of people tell me, when you watch us on defense, especially
Uh-huh.
as we were trying to get it switched around, we weren't big. We have some size now. We weren't very big.
Yeah.
We hammered speed and effort, hammered it, hammered it, hammered it. And you start seeing it on film. Look at this play. Look at this play. College coach comes in and says, "Hey, I saw you guys are flying around, right?" I'll tell them that. Like, get a belief in that. The hardest thing to do though is to tell a kid like it's 6 a.m. on February 4th, right? This is going to pay off, on September 12th.
Yeah.
But you got to do it every day. And it's like, wow, right? That's a hard sell. But that's also why, as part of right the overall piece of the program, is like we're not only going to help you for that, we're also making sure one, right, you're at school on time. We're going to help you with your grades. We're going to help you with all that other stuff so that when these seniors in the back end of that first year is like, all right, where are you guys going to college? We're going to help you with all this stuff. Like,
Right.
you need a letter of rec. This coach is coming in. Where do you want to go? Like, okay, that whole buy-in, if you're bought into our program, we're going to help you through college and through your career
Mhm.
through our connections and is what we can do, right? Because that's one thing of having nice community support
Yeah.
is when we have an alumni, we can now send that out and it really becomes one family throughout a community.
Right. And I don't think people realize that about coaches. Like sometimes the counselors reach out to the coaches and say, "Well,
Mhm.
can you help this kid?" And then you're like, "Well, do I get extra pay for it? No, but I'm going to do it."
Yep.
That's why I get mad at people who are like, "Well, I work from 7:45 to 3." And I'm like, "I work from 7:45 to like 10 o'clock at night,
No, I
want
don't, I
to."
mean, if they need something, that's what I'm here for, right?
Right.
There's not one person that's coaching just because what the paycheck says in high school football. Like that's,
No.
well, maybe if you're in Texas or say like that, but in the vast majority of the states, right, we're getting a what? couple $1,000 stipend here or there, or whatever that might be. Like that's what we're getting for coaching.
Mhm.
Doing it because we love it and we see the value in it and it's fun.
Right.
That's why
Eh,
we do it.
Well, and like for me, I took it upon myself to go like really study the sprint stuff over the last couple years, the feed the cat sprint based football.
Mhm.
And I'm like, we got to do something different. Like you said, we're not big. You know, as
Yep.
we're not big anymore. I know they used to be, but we're not. How do we be different? I went to athletic director a couple weeks ago and I said, I'm going to take it upon myself and I'm going to do this for all athletics. I want to do this for all athletics. So I'm having a
Mhm.
speed camp in the summer. I want to do it in the mornings and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, there's no stipend for that. I was like, I know, but I need to do this because we need that all athletics to get better and all athletics to do this. And my test run was with the football team. I had a kid go start 17 miles per hour within 4 weeks was 19. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's broad jumping. So he almost went down the whole lane of the track, broad jumping in like 8 seconds. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this kid is doing it. And so, like you said, sometimes we have to take the bull by the horn and do it ourselves. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to do it myself.
And to that point of once you really start going with that, so we time almost every single day in lifting, we time something during
Yeah.
our off-season program. We'll see, okay, get 2 times in for this, for this station as we're rotating around. And kids come back, like, what'd you get? Oh, I got, 1.1, right?
Mhm.
Oh, you beat me? Hold on, I'm going again. And
Yeah.
you can't fake that. Like when they start competing for that time,
Hmm.
like that is a part of like you cannot fake that mental edge. We're not telling them, but when
No.
you're around your buddy just beat your time, like, wait a minute, no, right? And you start getting that going in the off season, I mean, that you'll start seeing things take off completely.
Or like this happened, like you might do the same thing. I always tell them, okay, if we're whatever I'm timing, 3 cone drill, 10-meter flies, 10 yard,
Mhm.
whatever it is, you do it the first time, sit down for 5 minutes. I want you to reset your body. We do it again. If you get the same or faster, you do it a third time. You get slower, I'm not letting you do it again.
Yep.
I had like 3 kids go and they got slower, and I said, "You're done. Go away." And they're like, "No, no, 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 no. Hold on. I want to do it again." Like
Mhm.
you have to tell them and everything else. And then they see somebody else go fast, and they're like, "Well, I want to do it again." And you have to fight them. And I'm like, "I love that. Hold on to that."
Mhm.
But no, I'm not letting you do it. And the fact you're not letting them, hopefully, then the next workout or that speed workout, they're going harder because they're like, well, I want to do it a third time and
Yep.
see if I can beat my old time too. So I'm always posting them, I'm always telling them and keeping that data and stuff. And I'm hoping once you get on top, because we have kids doing baseball and track,
Yeah.
once they come back in the summer, hopefully more kids talking trash, like, oh, I'm faster than you, like, well, and they do it again. And so hopefully that will click.
And that's a thing that we do. And I know the feed the cats and all those guys are all over. Like we time multiple times during the season.
Yeah.
Like and during camp we'll time just and it's not as intense as in the off season, but you got to get a move if you get a move at full speed. And even then, it's like, oh, right, yeah, he got me this week and get me the right competing against each other for those fast times, and that really keeps you at your top speed throughout the season.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hoping. And you know how schools work. They all want data and stuff. So I have to keep this data to show head coaches and the athletic director, like, look what it's doing. And
Hmm.
but I also keep it for the players. And I got kind of lazy. I run our social medias too for no extra pay, of course, but I
Hmm.
run them. And I was always posting them, and I got kind of lazy and stopped posting them. But then they post it. You post on social media. Now the whole world can see it, and
Hmm.
some kids are going to be embarrassed and run from it. And some are going to be like, "Well, that's kind of embarrassing. I gotta get faster, or I gotta get a better time, or you know." Or if one kid that's not doing it makes fun of another kid, like, look how slow he is. And I'll look at the kid like, well, at least he's coming and running,
Yep.
and hopefully that will click. And as you know, it'll click with some kids, it doesn't click with some. And or I like if we get into the summer, they haven't been at the sprint stuff. Why is that kid in first? I'm like, well, he's faster than you. But I started the last 2 years. I don't care. He's faster. He's jumping better. You
Hmm.
got to earn it back now.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing to do in those situations is um you're there's going to be times when you're in a program where you're trying to get it rolling like at the top speed that you have to make a decision to play a worse football player than somebody
Hmm.
because of what they have done.
Hmm.
You haven't shown up. He has. He earned it. You didn't. Right. That is, it's very hard. And I would say I've done it in the past. It's very difficult. The only time I won't do it is if it like puts someone in danger, like if it's a left tackle and my quarterback might get killed.
Yeah.
And that's what hurts when you have the smaller program and you're trying to change it, is
Yep.
that now that one kid's a rule breaker and that's tough, right?
Mhm.
That's a hard thing to do if you might get somebody hurt, right?
Right.
It's a receiver, we can work around that, right? We can work around, a corner or a defensive player here or there. It's tough when it's an old lineman.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
That's where we're at right now. We're exactly right where we're exactly there. Like if you're not bought in, but this kid is, and it's easier in the summer, as you know, because you're not technically like in a position to like hit the quarterback or anything like that.
yep,
We can hide it in the summer.
yeah,
When you get to that season and you're like,
Friday
oh,
night's a little harder.
oh yeah, the summer is easy. Like they're going to show up and oh well, wait a minute, I'm the junior, I'm the senior, and this is a sophomore. And we're like, well, you know what? He came to everything. He's done everything.
Hmm.
He's getting better, so he gets first crack.
Well,
Sorry,
yeah,
Bob.
and I think the harder part is, so the line's not, hey, not only are you here all summer, right? And you're putting all the work in all summer and then all preseason camp, you're still not starting, right?
Hmm.
It's hard, right?
Hmm.
But you gave me 3 months of work. He gave me 7 months of work, right?
Yep.
It's a whole picture. It's just tell kids in the classroom. If you didn't show up for the first 2 months of class, you're probably not going to pass, right? It's the same type of deal. Like we have to, and like I said, that is an extremely, extremely hard thing to do.
Yep.
But if you truly want to try to get to the place you want to get to, those are things that need to be done.
Right.
It's hard, except like I said, except if it could lead to somebody else getting hurt, then you have to make the choice. All right, well, you need to play, or maybe it's a situation where you can sub them in and out, or
Hmm.
something you can do, but not easy.
Oh, it's not. And then as a coach, you have to accept the fact that maybe you're not going to be as good for this game because of the situation, and that's tough because you want to win, but
Mhm.
are you going to sacrifice yourself and what you're trying to do, or you know, or and be okay with it? And like again, head coaching problem, but I know for me and our head coach, I'm all bought in. I'm like, you could tell me not to play him because of this, and I'm gonna be like, okay, moving on
Mhm.
because of this reason,
Yeah.
and not because he needs to play defense more than offense. Like, well, hold on a second, let's have this conversation. But
Mhm.
if it's that, I'm like, okay, because we just made the playoffs. Now we're in a situation where you're bought in or you're not.
Yep.
If this kid's bought in and you're not, even though you're more athletic and you want to play college ball, sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
Um, like I said, this is Joe Rogan style, so I bounce around because I have
Keep
ADD
it
and
going.
everything goes. One thing I found curious when you were doing your presentation was that your formations use numbers, and I know you
Mhm.
got it from a clinic. Did you? How much easier is it to do that than naming them? Because like for us, we try to do the thing we're offense, like, okay, what do you call this formation? We're gonna call it that. What do you call this? We're gonna call it that. And that's just what they do. But then some defensive guys, like I've seen do that like you do. How much easier is it with the numbers?
In my opinion, infinitely. Like it's so much easier. It's it, and it's I think the easiest part is what the kids need to know and understand, right?
Hmm.
These are their top formations. These are where their people line up. That's what I need you to know more than what's the name of that formation.
Right.
But for me, I mean, I'm at the point now where I could break a whole game down in formations in like 6 minutes and maybe make one or two mistakes. Excuse me. So I think it's a lot easier. Now, as far as what do the offensive players on your team need to know all that stuff, or the defensive players are need to know the offensive formations? Well, yeah, but what if the team runs a formation you don't run? Do you have to
Hmm.
call it another thing, or you just tag a number to it?
Right.
Right. And I think that's where it comes in. With us seeing, everything from wing T to we've seen T formation multiple times. Like we've seen everything, right? We need to have that. We don't have a T formation on offense, so
Right.
I need to call it something.
Yeah, that makes way more sense because now, like you said, when you tag like jet motion, that's easy because it looks
Mhm.
just like what you see in practice. Uh, if it's an orbit motion, if you run that in your offense, that's easy to call. Uh, if they run inside zone, well, we call it Michigan. Yeah, they run Michigan. Yeah, that's just what it is.
Yep.
And that stuff's way more easier. And then, uh, but at the end of the day, like some people, like our defense coordinator, Steve, is this outside zone or wide zone? And I'm like, well, it's technically wide zone. Well, I'm going to call it outside zone. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever the kids react to it on defense, I do not care. But then he's like, how do you know it's wide zone? I'm like, well, look at the O line's feet. Look at this.
Yep.
And so, like, we all call things differently, but he's like, I'm just going to call it outside zone. I'm like, cool, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
I actually lump all of that into one category. It's like that's an outside run play. Don't
Yep.
it's I split it off to are they trying to get the perimeter? Then we would call it a reach and run play. Or are they trying to cut it back? If they're trying to cut it back, whether it's wide, mid, inside zone, or duo, it's zone. Because that's the way we have to run fit it. And that's kind of
Okay.
what we can the way they're taught to run fit it from the D line and the linebacker standpoint, regardless of the offensive lineman's path, we are able to get in the position to fit it the same.
Right.
So for us, that's zone or
Yeah.
it's an outside run. And we cut it at that. What's the back actually trying to do?
Right. Um, so again, I jump all over the place. When you come in, you're a
Mhm.
defense coordinator, the way you're breaking down film and doing that stuff, and you're coming in with your new defense, kind of two questions. You come in, how do you get the kids to buy into it? And then how do you get coaches to buy in? Like, this is how I want stuff breaking down. This is how I want to do it. Like, how do you get, especially if it's a staff that you don't pick or that it's inherited because it's high school, like, how do you get both to kind of buy into that?
That's a great question. I think the first thing is open and honest, right? This is what I'm going to try to do. We're going to see if it works or not, right? You are not the overall authority of football. I didn't invent the game of football, right? That's
Mm,
not me. This is what I know, right? If you, and I think this is the biggest thing that they have to understand, if you do what I say and you trust me, I trust you,
mhm.
you're going to make the play, right? We need to, and we haven't done this yet. We need to trust each other, right? And the first time you see it work, right, you need to just go crazy
Yeah.
in practice. I remember my first year as a DC, we were at COVID, whatever. There's 2 feet of snow on the field. We're at like the Bow Dome in Bensonville on a shortened field or whatever. We did an inside run. We were trying out a kid at middle linebacker who ended up being a pretty good football player. He hit an inside zone run fit. He wouldn't play. He was playing outside linebacker as a sophomore year before, so as a junior. They're like, I don't know if he play inside. He hits it, smokes a kid in the backfield, and I went crazy. And everyone stopped and looked. I'm like, that's it. Make another play. You have to bring the excitement. Like, this is
Yeah.
it, right? When you're seeing this whole picture and vision come together, bring the excitement, right?
Right.
Not everyone's that guy, but somebody on your staff, especially on defense, defense is an emotional side of the ball, and it has to be, right? We're asking kids to bang their head against people running at them full speed. You have to
Right.
be emotional about that. Somebody's got to be excited when plays are made.
Right.
And then that starts rolling. Like, oh, well, okay, I'm excited for the kid that made the play. I'm excited that my scheme's working. They see that. Now they're happy for me. They're happy for each other. Make another play. Get going. Build that energy.
Right. And then for the staff, is it the same type of thing? Like, okay, you're seeing me be energetic. What I'm asking you guys to do is working, or is like the head,
Mhm.
and I know you're the head coach now, but does the head coach have to step in and say, like, this is what we're doing, or do you just kind of have to take that upon yourself?
So I can say that when we were at York, is Fitz kind of let me do it.
Okay.
He saw it working. The kids bought in. He saw it working in practice, so he just kind of let me go. And the guys I have on staff, Most of them still the exact same. Our
Mhm.
D-line coach, our DB coach, Casper and Sutter. Sutter will be retiring at the end of the year.
Oh wow.
But they're they were will do whatever. And they're bought in, they learn the system, ready to go. So I had the luxury of having assistants that were bought in
Mhm.
already. They're right. That whole coaching staff the last couple of years at York, almost especially on the varsity, most of the varsity staff still around. Some of the younger guys, there's been some movement, but most of the varsity staff still be with me. Every single one of them was completely bought into the vision and what we were doing. That doesn't happen everywhere.
Mhm.
It was an amazing staff, but I think for the coaches, it needs to be a little bit more logical.
Okay. Yep.
You need to let your assistants coach to a point of where if you see someone be like, hey, what's going on there? I mean, I like to say I have a way of kind of sneaking like, oh, what are we doing?
Mhm.
Hey, can we try this? Right? How much resistance? If they're like a no person, like, no, we're not doing it, then you have to be a no person back to them. Like, no, we are doing it
Right.
this way. Um, if they say, hey, if they give you some reasons, like, I want to do it this way, I've done it this way in the past, this is why it works, this is why I like it better. Okay, and see it. If it works, right? D-line technique. Now, me and our D-line coach are in lockstep with what we do. Like if I was coaching D-line, would do everything. He probably might even do it better than me. I don't know, but we do everything exactly the same. Like I would do it. It was like, hey, I'm making this up. It's like I'd rather swim than rip on this play because this reason and this is what I saw and this is why I think it'll work with that kid. I put on film and let me evaluate it.
Right.
If it works, go with it. Right?
Right.
If you're just like, no, I'm doing it my way, then you have to step in and your personality has to come in front of it.
Right. Oh, I've been there. I've been there, and it's not fun. Because I went to Eastern. I coached at Charleston High School right down the
Mhm.
street,
Oh
and
yeah.
I became an OC at like the age 24, 25, and I was working with guys that were like 40 years old and everything else. And uh, you know, I was the only one not born and raised in Charleston on staff, so that didn't help either. And I was all part of it. And the worst part
Mhm.
is when you get in arguments on the field in front of the kids. And I'm young and they're old, and
Yep.
one of those things. Oh, I've been on sorts of staffs, and that, oh, terrible.
So I have a rule on that though, and that is we are never going to get in a heated argument in front of we might disagree. We have to
Hmm.
put that to the side and then we'll handle that behind closed doors if it's going to be heated. But I never want a shouting match,
Yeah.
right? So that's where if you see it building up to that, the head coach has to step in and say, nope, do it that way. We'll talk about it later. Go. Right. Um, a shouting match about a scheme in front of the kids will take away every single thing that I just told you about all that energy. Because they'll be like, they don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
Imagine walking into a classroom with two teachers. You're sitting there trying to learn algebra, and the teachers start yelling at each other about how to teach algebra.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
These guys don't know what they're doing. Right?
Right.
That's what the kids, these are high school kids. That's what they see. You
Right.
can't. Now, behind closed doors, yeah, maybe you have a heated conversation about it and we have to figure it out, right? We're adults. But if you're getting that in front of the kids, that's tough. And I will say that people might be listening, might be assistants or whatever. You might be on staffs like that and just know one, that's not how it is everywhere.
Mhm.
And two, that's probably a toxic environment as a staff that you should probably get out of.
Oh, and that's why I'm in the suburbs,
There
because
you are.
because I'm not gonna get on that spiel because it's such a, you know, it turned into like me and the head coach getting into
Mhm.
butting heads. Like everybody's probably on a staff like that, and then you feel bad for the kids because it's like you're not putting them in a good position, and then the kids have to kind of pick sides where like the quarterback's coming up to me saying like, "Oh, I'm trusting you," after all that, and you feel good, but then you're like, "Well," but then you might have the linebacker going with the head cut. Like then it starts all that,
Yep.
and I was young, and again, did I think I knew everything? Absolutely, I did. I thought I knew it all.
Mhm.
A play sheet is 3 pages because I know it all, and we need this.
Yep.
And Coach Walters at Lombard East, I move up here,
Oh yeah.
go coach there, and he turned it all around. And the funny thing is, he coached at Charleston years and years and years ago, and I explained my problems, and he goes, "Oh, I went through the same thing with a different coach." I'm like, "Oh, so it's just the town, it's not me." And he goes, "No, no, no."
Yeah. I just
And
remember yelling at one of, just brought back a memory. One of my friends at St. Pat's a while ago. I was a D coordinator, he was the O, and it was during practice, and they were moving on to our side of the field, and they were going up and down, and I forget what happened. I was probably in a bad mood. We asked me to move, and I yelled back like, something quick, and be like, "I apologize, players, him, like that's not what we're about." Like those things have to get handled inside, and those things happen, right? Like argument. I don't want to say shouting matches. Yeah, sometimes it'll happen, but
mhm,
it's an emotional game. Like it's
yeah,
an emotional game. Those things happen. If it's going to be heated behind closed doors, if a head coach sees it or even a coordinator sees it, we got to try to stop it and be like, "Hey, we'll do something else. We'll handle it after practice."
mhm,
Because those are culture killers and those are kids. Yeah, right.
yeah. Oh, and that's happened to me. Like exactly your same story happened to me at Addison. I'm at one part of the field. Oh, they're throwing the ball towards us, and
But
then
you're an old line coach in the end zone. We always throw the ball towards you in 7-on-7.
oh
Just
yeah, that's what happened. And I said something like, "Well, you have the whole other field that way. You could throw that way." And they were like, "Oh, well, you used to be down there." And I said, "Well, today I'm down here." Like,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
me and the OC started saying something, and I got not heated. It wasn't heated, but you're just kind of
yeah.
back and
Yeah, yeah,
forth.
yeah.
And so then I finally said, "All right, we'll take the men down here. The little women can have this side." So we go to the other side. And immediately, right after practice, I go inside, I grab the OC, and I said, I take full responsibility. That
Yeah.
will never happen again. That was just one of those, a bad day of work, bad day of
Mm.
practice. And you just kind of, and I told him that, and he goes, that wasn't even the worst thing that's ever happened to me on a football field. So you're totally like, he
Oh,
was,
yeah.
he's
That's
like,
true.
but like, that also speaks to a coaching staff, like to go in and just say, that's my bad. That will never happen again,
Mhm.
blah, 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 blah. And then immediately forget about it. Then I go tell the old line. The funny thing was, then the old line receiver start jawing. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a hard hitting practice, like this is what we needed. And then you think about it and you go, nah, that's not the way to go about it.
Yeah. But it happens. Yeah, that's football. It's life.
Oh, yeah. Um, what was I going to say? And like I said, I'm a ADD. I coach three sports, so my brain just goes all over the place. Um, Being at like York, how much work do you put in with like other sports coaches? Like, because you have a lot of players, maybe they don't do all the sports because there's like how what communication is like with like all the other coaches.
Um, it's communication with all the other coaches. So I haven't had a ton with right. I'm just starting as the head coach. It's pretty good. Like we share players a
Yeah.
lot. But I can tell you from the football side of it is we want kids to play other things
Hmm.
as long as they're comfortable doing it. We still do have a basic in-season requirement for lifting. So like if you're lifting like what you have to do, it's modified, it's different than what you would do if you're just coming to our lifting program full time. Um, if there's a conflict, usually, we'll ask the kid first, like what's going on. That communication's really good. Um, I would say most of our communication at York, as you probably know, deals with field space because it
Oh
gets
yeah.
there's not a lot. So
No.
it's more of like, hey, where are you going here? We're going there. We're taking that area. So that's the most. Um, but yeah, do conflicts happen between that? Yeah. Um, I try to be as reasonable as possible. Like at the same time, like we just talked about school culture. Like baseball team's doing pretty good right now. I
Hmm.
really hope they win a state title. Like we got a lot of our football guys on baseball. Like win a state title, right? We got quarterbacks going downstate for 100-meter dash, right?
Yep.
I want them to bring home a state title. Like I want those guys to win titles. Like that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
So hey, coach, sectionals are coming up. Don't show up to lifting, right? Stay
Right.
home, rest, or if you want to come in and stretch, right? Go do whatever you got. Like, don't. I don't need you. Go win a trophy, right?
Right.
When that time comes. Um, so just being kind of respectful of that nature. We have we live Friday morning at 6 o'clock, but basketball's had open gyms at 6 o'clock on Fridays since the season's been over. All right, I'm gonna switch weeks. A couple of kids, or I'm gonna go to basketball on Fridays. Okay, it's
Mhm.
fine. You have to share those athletes, and the as long as they're there competing and they're not showing up for a stupid reason, that's great, right?
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
That's fine. The one bench and one squat the kid missed, we'll make up for it in the summer. It'll be fine, right?
Right.
Let him compete.
That's so funny about field space. I think that was the only arguments when I was there was track or whoever's still in the field house, and we're supposed to have at 5 o'clock
Oh
and go in there. The funniest thing was Coach Kalau already started putting the cage down. He's like, "It's 5 o'clock. It's gotta go." Which he's gonna
yeah,
retire soon anyway, too, so he doesn't care. But he's put,
yeah.
yeah. He goes, "Steve, go to the other cage and start putting it down." And I'm like, "What?" He goes,
I'm,
"Go over there."
I, but yeah, we do have some great facilities at York, but
Yeah.
little landlocked, a little tight for some of our things. A lot of the lower level sports, right? Freshmen played at uh behind Churchville, right?
Yep. Yep.
Right. So like our Barons Park, so a lot of our lower levels are going all over the place.
Yeah. They did not build that right years ago.
And I don't know, at some point, there's 100 stories about it. I'm sure I could find it. They own some of the land behind the school and this or that, or when this addition happened.
Oh,
It's,
I heard that where that is it the transition building right by the parking lot across the railroad tracks really
yes.
they apparently could have bought all that and made something. They decided not to, and like all this stuff, and you know, like I'm like I don't know. It just like you said, it doesn't look like they built it right when
Yeah.
it happened, and but who knows?
The
40 years.
front turf has been that since they put that turf in the front, that's actually been really helpful. So
Oh, that's awesome. We've had
yeah,
baseball practice on there on Saturday mornings. Like if
great.
because lower levels, we don't want to go to Churchville for practice, so it's like, hey, varsity's on the field. We can just go use the turf, right? And as long as nobody has it, we're on the turf. And we're like,
Yep.
perfect, because or that grass field right by the baseball field.
Yep.
And Coach Murph, it's a good thing I worked at Sandburg for a year, so I know Murph, I know Sutter.
Yeah.
So what was great was when I came back to coach it, when I started coaching at York, Murph saw me, he goes, "What are you doing? Don't you work in AT with Bazant?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "Hey, what are you doing here?" "I'm coaching." So the good part was since me and him knew each other, we could work it out where like they're throwing disc and we have baseball and all
Yeah,
that.
but like that field, the discus pit, freshman baseball, freshman football, it's like Murph will be our varsity offensive coordinator this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he's the man. Um, He'll be great. But yeah, so that's for us. We have awesome facilities at York. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, field space just gets a little snug at times.
Oh yeah. It depends. Depends on what's going on. And Sutter's got 1 year.
Yeah, last year.
Oh, and is his wife retiring too, or is she already?
I think same. I think it's this year too.
Oh wow.
I'd ask him. I don't know. He'll be in Canada for a couple weeks. Right after school year, he goes up to his place in Canada for like 2 weeks. He
Oh
lives
yeah.
the life.
I remember working at Sandburg. He drove like the oldest car older than me, and I'm like, "Don't you want a new car? That thing has no gas cap. The door handle's broken." He goes, "No."
He did upgrade. He
Oh,
upgraded. Yeah. He's got a new truck.
because my first year working at Sandburg it was 2018 when Fitz got the job at York, and I remember contacting Fitz, but he was just brand new. He's trying to get the staff put together. I said, "Don't worry about me." I ended up at Lombardi's, and the funny thing was, I think every year me and Fitz would text. He'd be like, "Hey, you want to come coach now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm at Lombardi's. We went 9-0, whatever. Moved to Naperville, and I'm like, it's too far." And even to this day, sometimes it's like, "You gonna come coach at York?" When I started doing baseball, like it was just funny.
Yeah.
Fitz is the
Are you
guy.
still in Naperville?
I still live in Naperville. Yeah, by the Top Golf, right off of the interstate. Or I grew up by Champaign Urbana in a
Well,
country
it's an
town.
interstate, not a tollway, right?
I call it interstate, even though it's expressway or
That's
whatever.
what. Yeah, whatever. It's all the same.
That was the only thing. I don't know how you guys live like this all the time, like with the 4 lane roads and stuff. Like I miss my country roads. I miss my 1 lane roads.
Be glad they're four. Growing up, it used to be like two or three, and like just stand there for a while. But yeah,
Oh,
that's life.
or because I was that toxic environment in Charleston, I was never going to coach again. It was so bad. I was like, I'm not doing it, never again. And what happened was because in Elmhurst, you always drive by York. So I drive by
Mhm.
York. They're practicing, and you start doing this. You're like, oh, and then coaches around the area are fantastic. That's what I
Yeah.
found out in the suburbs. Like some, yeah. But when I started coaching at Glenbard East and you're meeting all these coaches, and I'm like, oh, so it was just a bad experience I had. All these guys are fantastic. Like,
Mhm.
and they don't leave. And they don't leave.
No, yeah, there are some incredible coaches in the West Suburban. And I mean,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been to a lot of different places, Catholic League, East Suburban. Like there's amazing coaches out there.
Oh, yeah, they're great. There's a couple I can't stand, and I won't say them on here, but there's some are in the West Suburban, but that's okay.
Not you. You can't like everybody, right?
No, because something
I'm sure
rubs
I
me.
rubbed someone the wrong way at some point.
Oh yeah, I've been rubbed the wrong way, and but that just happens. And sometimes
Mhm.
it's not the head coach, sometimes it's an assistant, and you're like,
Yep.
yeah, whatever. Or the non-cons that you got to play, and you're like, but then you just don't play them again.
Yeah. We've had some pretty good luck with our non-cons, which shockingly, which has been good. So
I did.
scheduling's been a little tougher now, but it is what it is.
Well, you can blame us for that because we
Yeah,
didn't
we
win any.
know. That's okay.
It's okay. I was one of the guys when I got hired, and they were telling me what was going on. I sat there and I would stir the pot, and I'm like, why? I'm one of the you could turn off right now. I told our head coach Bazan, he taught at York for like a year or two, so he
Mhm.
knows. He was just it was just basically we're not in a position to compete in that side of the conference, and this is kind of
It's also kind of interesting when you look at how, right, because these divisions were made in the 80s.
mhm,
And just the way that it kind of morphed into what it is now, like that the when it was formed as a relatively competitively
mhm,
balanced, but it's just very interesting in how that has developed over the years until now.
mhm. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, but yeah, that this count. I mean, the divisions in this count. I'll go. I think mid '80s, right? We're talking 40 years. It's been like this.
Mhm.
It's kind of crazy to think that it's got to be one of the most stable conferences around. Right? That doesn't
Yeah,
happen anywhere. So,
that is
especially in
true.
the western suburbs, I mean, teams jump ship every year or two. So, it's kind of at the same time, right? Yeah, it's tough, but like we having that is great because you don't know what comes if you leave a conference, right? Could be
That's
good,
true. Yeah,
could be bad, could be whatever. So,
yeah. That's a good point because Coach Parpet was the head coach at AT for a long time. His son's still at AT, and just hearing the stories about like, and I know I'm just speaking about AT, but like AT could compete with you like that other side. They used to because they
mhm.
had the not the
Oh
most
yeah.
talent, but they were just big and strong, and you know, uh, they could compete on that side. Willowbrook's competing now, and all that stuff, and you know, then it kind of turned into for some reason that side kind of went this way, and this our side just kind of stayed the same. And it's weird how people move here, the environment and COVID hurt a lot of teams on our side and everything else. And but it's still competitive. I mean, it's still, you know, I think it's made perfectly. Your guys' side is very similar to each side, and our
Mhm.
side is similar-ish to our side.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's like it's just the way it panned out the last, I don't know, 10 years has been very interesting. But yeah, like you said, there's teams right down or south's good. Willowbrook's had some great runs. Um, but like, yeah, it's interesting that a school where, it's not for people that don't know, the West Suburban is right, a gold and a silver. And there's a reason for someone told me the reason of why it's called gold and silver. I don't even know,
I don't
but
know.
it's not north south or east west or whatever. So like everyone's right. Downers
Yeah,
Grove North and Downers Grove South are on different halves. Hinsdale Central and South are on different sides of the conference. Like it's weird the way that it's kind of sorted out the last couple of years, I guess.
and I I know I'll piss off Bob at Morton. I don't know why Morton's in it because I hate that drive to Morton so much. I hate going up there. Uh, and they got 8,000 kids. Why do we go up there? I don't know. But it's tradition. They've been in it, so they're like, they got to
Yep.
stay. And I'm like, oh,
Well,
uh,
Oak Park's right by them. So yeah, OPRF too. So
that's true. Like I said, I'm from Central Illinois, so sometimes I can't remember who's by where. I've got it down pretty much, but uh, I hate going to Morton. Oak Park's not a bad drive. Drive to your guys' side is not bad at all. It's
yeah,
just that
that's
Morton.
coming from so Fenwick, St. Pat's to Ridgewood. Those three schools. So Fenwick was in the Catholic League where we'd go, right? Loyola to Mount Carmel to Providence, all over
God,
the place, right? To St. Pat's, East Suburban, so Carmel Mundelein to Marist to Marion County,
wow.
all over the place. To Ridgewood, when I was in head coach at Ridgewood, we were in the Metro Suburban when it existed, but we'd have, St. Ed's and Elgin to Chicago Heights, Bishop Mac joined to Kankakee. Like to now it's like, oh well, our furthest away game is like 6 minutes. So like it's like, oh, that's kind of nice. All right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what's our furthest away game? It's like, oh, well, this year I think our furthest away game is Glenbard West. It's like, cool. Well, we play Plainfield North, will be a little further, but it's like that's the travel. It's like, all right, we can handle that. Oh,
Right.
maybe no, we're at Oak Park. Oak Park will be the furthest.
Yeah, but for some reason it's not as bad of a drive to Morton. I don't know why. It's not that bad, especially
Yeah.
for football. Now, like baseball, when you're trying to get there and like leaving
Oh,
at 3:30. Oh no.
you don't go anywhere.
If you're trying to play at 7:30, you still got a chance. Like
Yeah.
it's Oak Park. Everywhere else, Morton, you could leave at 5:30 and still get there in an hour. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's city traffic for you or suburb traffic, whatever you
And
want to call
I know I keep complaining about them, but I'm thinking like the drive to Hinsdale South isn't bad for us. It's Willowbrook's right down the street.
it. Yeah.
Lyon's close.
Yep.
If I don't want to play you guys anytime soon, but if we did, it's right down the street.
Mhm.
It's not bad. Lombard West is close. Uh,
Yeah.
the Upstate Age is now turning into our conference. They split into two sides. Same
That's
thing.
where like Ridgewood, where I was at before, Elmwood Park, Fenton. Remember, they all kind of joined that.
Well,
Um,
and the drive you described was going to be the districts, and that's
yep.
kind of why we weren't for it. We kind of saw it and we were like we kind of get it, but like it would suck to drive by a school that we could play, and like you have to keep going. And
Yeah.
like I'm buddies with the guys at Burlington Central, and they said the same thing. They were like, we'd have to drive to like Ridgewood, or we'd have to drive to like somewhere, and we're
Bar.
like, why are we driving by like Lombard South that we could maybe play, but we gotta keep going to like
Yeah.
drive here.
Yeah. The district thing's always it comes up, and I always like seeing. All right, let's see what 10 possible projections come up with. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
like that one, I like that one. It's like, uh, I mean, it is what it is. As far as that goes, I mean, it would be nice if there was some sort of maybe non-conference district play if we could, but then there's conferences of different sizes and it goes down a very long rabbit hole of if you want to do it or not.
Mhm.
And I don't think the system we have is that bad
I
personally.
like it. I like it.
Yeah, I don't really mind it. I understand the district argument. I mean, I understand, like, I don't think it's a bad argument. I just don't want to be the guy making the district saying,
No,
but why do we get in this district? Well, I don't know, man. Like, some
and the
it
fact that
is
it
what
would
it is.
change every year, like if your enrollment is changed by 5, it would be now in this. Like that's the part I didn't. That's another part I didn't like was
Yeah,
well, you could play these 6 teams this year, and the next year you're playing two completely different teams, which is fun. But then you're kind of like, I like the stability of the conference, kind of knowing what we're about to get. And
yeah. And I think that's really the reason why district keeps coming up is because there's not conference stability in a lot of places.
right,
And that's I like it keeps becoming a thing. It's like, well, if it's about conference stability is cool, it's like, well, we don't have it. It's like, well, some don't have it, some do. So, right.
well, kind of like we said at the very beginning, your problems are not my problems.
Yeah, it's
Like,
it's tough. Um, but yeah, I whatever happens, happens. We're gonna play high school football in Illinois, and
yeah,
have to deal with it in some way.
Right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking so much time tonight. Fun stuff. I appreciate you. I guess I'm
Awesome.
still kind of a Duke, even though I don't coach there, but I was at one point. I still have York stuff. I could wear it. I still got it over
There
there.
you go. It's
I
amazing when you look at your closet after a couple
oh
years, like, oh my God, what is going on in here?
I still got North stuff.
Hmm,
Okay, I gotta tell you this because I at one point I coached at three different high schools in 1 year.
that's incredible.
I was working at AT and coaching football. I live in Naperville. There was no basketball stipend, so I was coaching basketball at Nequa Valley, and then I had no spring stipend. Dave went to high school with RAD. They needed a coach. He goes, "Hey, I got a guy here. We don't have spring stipend. Blah blah blah." Ended up at York. So for 1 year, I coached at three high schools.
Wow. That's it's impressive. Not many people do that. I don't know.
I love coaching, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And then, uh, well, the COVID year, I coached girls track, basketball at Nequa, and football at AT. That was another like, oh yeah, people hear that story and they think I'm crazy, and I am crazy. But I was like, I made it work.
Yeah.
I made it work. I came from Central Illinois where I knew everybody. Now I'm in the
Mhm.
suburbs. I don't know anybody. This helped me learn everything. Uh, but you could imagine my wardrobe. I had blue, I had gold, I had green. Then
And a
my
lot of color clashing too there. Not the, Kelly Green doesn't go well with the blue and gold or the navy. Like that's not
no.
a great look.
Well, then my keys too. I had keys for AT, keys for Nequa, keys for York, and I'm like looking at all my keys. I had to get different hooks. I'm like, oh my god.
It
I
could,
like
yeah.
so I like to tell coaches that story. I'm like, if you love coaching, you're going to do that, and I did. And then I got it down to just Addison and York, and then I thought I was going to stay that way forever, and then turned to just AT. But I still got Kelly Green in there, so maybe I'll come to a playoff game if we don't make the playoffs. I got it still. It's over there.
There you go. Great.
But coach, I appreciate you coming on here.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me.